Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The side event is billed to start at 1:15, and it's already like a minute after, so we're going to start right away. And it's not just because the Swiss are co-organizing. It's because it's in the tradition of the ILO that we start on time. Great that we have this collaboration with the Swiss. So we will start, and that has been the way we've worked on the events that we've been involved with. We still have one. She's just coming. I was going to say we still have a panelist who is going to join us, but I see that Sarah walked in almost just in time. I want to welcome you all to this side event on the Global Coalition for Social Justice, fostering increased international cooperation and policy coherence to achieve social justice for everyone, everywhere. I promise you that this is going to be a very, very fruitful and engaging conversation. But more than a conversation, the expectation is that we'll leave here really geared up to make a difference. I'm Cynthia Samuel Olonjuan, the ILO Special Representative to the United Nations, based here in New York. But for this purpose, I am privileged to be your moderator. The theme of our panel underlines an intrinsic and important connection between social development and social justice as fundamental for achieving the SDGs. This connection is also one of the founding principles of the Global Coalition for Social Justice, which has been established under the leadership of the ILO. The Global Coalition is a groundbreaking multi-stakeholder initiative which aims to intensify collective efforts to urgently address social justice deficits and accelerate the implementation of the SDGs. And, of course, decent work, being an operational part of this. It seeks to generate stronger political commitments and investments and to foster concrete actions. I repeat that, to foster concrete actions towards social justice and decent work in support of national priorities. So with this very brief introduction, it is indeed my honor to welcome our distinguished panelists. As I said earlier, I'm really honored to have this amazing panelists who will be sharing reflections with us to set the stage for us to have a really fruitful conversation. I'll start with my boss. Mr. Gilbert Hongbo, the 11th Director General of the ILO and the first African DG of the ILO. Yes. And of course, it's my privilege to introduce Ambassador Valérie Berset, with whom we're co-organizing this very important conversation, and she's the head of International Labor Affairs for the Swiss government. We also have Madame Maria Francesca Spatulisano, I got it, right? Yes, very well. I've been practicing. She's the ASG from DESA, and you have seen her in some of the sessions of CSocD because her department is very crucial for this. But more than that, she's a key collaborator with us here in New York. And of course, we have Sarah Hendricks, who came in just as we were about to start. She's the Director of Policy Program and Intergovernmental Division of the UN Women. Sarah, you're welcome. We also have Ms. Kathy Feingold, who is the Deputy President of ITUC, but also the director of AFL-CIO. You're very welcome. Last but not the least, we have the representative of, we have Ms. Noreen Kennedy, the Senior Vice President for Policy and Global Strategy at the U.S. Council for International Business, with whom we collaborate. So we have a packed table, and we have you. We have you who really dynamize this engagement. I'll introduce the Honorable Minister later when she will take the floor, because we have the Minister from Finland who is here with us, and she'll be intervening as well. So to set the stage, I will invite Ambassador Valérie Berset to share with us. We're going to be very, very strict with time. For those of you who know me, it could be the look, it could be the mic, it could be what looks like the, anyway, I'll tell you later. So you have the floor, Madame Valérie.
Thank you, Madame Cynthia. Thank you very much for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm a bit afraid of you, so I'll try to be quick. It's a huge honor to open this important discussion on behalf of Switzerland. We are delighted to organize this side event dedicated to the Global Coalition for Social Justice in collaboration with the ILO. And I would also like to thank our co-sponsor, the Permanent Mission of Finland to the UN, for their support and contribution just later on. Over the last decade, our world has experienced an increase in social inequality. Global challenges call for a global answer. It's more important than ever for the multilateral system to be united around a common set of objectives. And we do believe that social justice must therefore become a foundation of multilateralism and a unifying objective, but also a powerful lever at the service of a more efficient multilateral system that guarantees coherent policies. Social justice promotes fairness, equity, among many aspects of society, and constitutes a double tool to, on the one hand, promote equal economic, educational, and workplace opportunities, and on the other hand, reduce poverty, inequality, and discrimination worldwide. The Global Coalition for Social Justice is deeply rooted in the ILO's mandate, which describes the promotion of social justice as the aim of intensifying collective efforts to urgently address social justice deficits. This resonates very well with the topic of the 62nd session of the Commission on Social Development that we are now all participating, fostering social development and social justice through social policies to accelerate progress on the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and to achieve the overarching goal of poverty eradication. Switzerland has supported the Global Coalition for Social Justice, I can say, since the beginning. We are convinced that social justice must become a cornerstone of the new multilateralism and that it requires the mobilization of the entire multilateral system. With its normative mandate, but more important even, its tripartite structure and means of action, the ILO enjoys a unique position within the UN system and the necessary legitimacy to work towards social justice in the future and encourage other actors to join its efforts. Switzerland has traditionally advocated for policy coherence between multilateral institutions. Of course, as a host country to the ILO and many other international organizations and specialized agencies, it's well placed to facilitate dialogue between institutions. I'm therefore delighted to announce that Switzerland is among the first 20 countries that have joined the Global Coalition for Social Justice. And today, it's an opportunity for us also to call on all those present here and also in the CSocD to really do the same and join this coalition, because action is urgently needed. And it was said every single day this week, growing inequalities are jeopardizing the achievement of the 2030 goals. Governments, international organizations, social partners, as well as civil society must act urgently to intensify and better coordinate their efforts in favor of social justice. And the social mandate of specialized agencies should be enhanced. The ILO's role is to create this platform for exchange between partners, enabling collective action. We encourage the ILO to be proactive, to play its leading role, and to further refine the coalition's thematic priorities. And I'm very looking forward to hear the views of our panelists today on how this coalition can foster this international cooperation all over the world with impact and also policy coherence for social justice. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I hope I respected the timing.
I was beginning to give you the look. Thank you very much, Ambassador Berset, for the very pertinent issues to set the stage. And you heard her very clearly, clarion call for everyone to join the coalition, following in the footsteps of the government of Switzerland. We'll now have the first round of questions, and it will be addressed to the DG, my boss, as well as UNDESA, one after the other. So DG, as the head of the International Labour Organization, what are some of the key challenges to social development and social justice worldwide? And how can we seize the opportunities of the multilateral system to foster positive changes in these areas? And you have all of 3 minutes.
And I will also do like Ambassador Berset and keep within the 3 minutes plus few seconds. I mean, clearly, I'll take it from where Ambassador Berset left it. The inequalities is the first point that will come to my mind. You know, I was in in an earlier session, I was saying that in Davos 2 weeks ago, one of the major point that coming out in one of those civil representation is the growing inequalities in the last 40 years, and there is no single region where inequality has not grown up. Of course, some regions are doing better than others. Quite frankly, Europe is doing much better than other regions, but all regions have seen the inequality growing, and we do know that the top 10% of the world population still having the 60 to 80% of the world annual income, and while the bottom 50%, there's no region where the bottom 50% can count on more than 5%. So for me, this is one. A second point, very quickly, will be also the AI and the whole technology, the digital, the technology, and the artificial intelligence, which could be a challenge at the same time an opportunity. Let's be very clear as well on that. It's clear that my third point, we need to look at the 3 legs. The economic, the social, and the environmental. The need for us to push and move on those 3 legs at the same times. And of course, if you look at the climate change, none of us in this room will say that we are happy, because we know we are lagging behind. But something at least we have to recognize is that the momentum, the political momentum, is quite very high on the climate change. And the economy, we are doing not bad with our lows and downs despite the current inflation. However, the social dimension of development, I believe we are still cannot take it for granted, unfortunately. So this is also why I believe is important for us. Then the opportunities that I see. First of all, is the policy coherence that we're talking about. I think And the fact that we need to work together and the multilateral need to work together, I don't want to insist too much on that. We all agree on that. But you can work together, yet still, when you put yourself in the country perspective, not having policy coherence, necessarily the best policy coherence. So we really need to mainstream in it, and we need to ensure that intentional and the policy coherence so that we can maximize the impact of our working together. And also the talking about the equilibrium, the opportunity that I see is that the supply chains that are really contributing to economic growth and lifting millions of people out of poverty, of course we need to encourage the supply chain. And at the same token, we need to make sure that the supply chains are free of what we know happening in terms of child labor, forced labor, or environmental degradation, and so forth. That again, trying to balance on that. So you could see that you have the opportunities and the challenge at the same time. My last point quickly on that 3 minutes is also using the AI as a potential of opportunity while managing the transition, both the digital and the green transitions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, DG. It was an extended 3 minutes, but I gave for the co-organizers. But after this, I'm going to be ruthless. And I'm starting with you, Dessa. And the question is, in what ways can the Global Coalition for Social Justice contribute to reducing inequalities? This is one of the issues that was mentioned by the DG. While balancing the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. Still linking this with what the DG said. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. I could be very brief and say I subscribe entirely to what Gilbert just said, because it's true. We totally see eye to eye on this. But let me say, first of all, thanks to ILO, to the Switzerland government for organizing this, recognize the authorities and the minister and all you friends and colleagues. I will briefly say 2 or 3 things. One, clearly we are in an environment which is very difficult, very dire. We find ourselves facing global transformations, incredible challenges. Don't need to give you the list, you all know. It's the wars and the poverty and the disasters which follow the humanitarian crisis. Is the climate change, is the transformation of our technological dimension, which is pervasive, the concentration of wealth, the inequalities we were talking, and so on and so forth. All these challenges, you know, they are global, and therefore we have to face them with global solutions, and at the basis of a global solution, what you find solidarity. So we have to really highlight this need to revive solidarity. Of course, the best way to revitalize the multilateral system is what we need to explore. How do we do this? And there are a few ideas I would like to share with you. Of course, first of all, the Charter of the United Nations was written long ago when multilateralism meant a relation among a few relatively limited number of member states. That was multilateralism in the 40s, 50s. Today, we know that there is not only a much larger number of states, but also a number of non-state actors who are equally important if you want to find the real solutions to these problems in global affairs. So the United Nations is and should continue to be that platform for collaboration, but the number and the nature of the actors has changed, and we have to find ways to acknowledge and work with this. So solutions need to involve private actors, civil society, and so many other actors, and this should be part of not only the preparation, but also the accountability mechanism if we want to, have a real impact. So international cooperation I take one, international international cooperation is a critical component of resource mobilization, for instance, including in tax matters, which so far maybe wasn't so much into the picture, but it's part of the picture. And so are social policies to reduce inequality and eradicate poverty. So the private sector can be a very good, useful, and effective companion, partner in this, promoting decent work, in reducing informal employment, paying their dues to the workers through benefits and social protection, and can embrace the principles of responsible innovation when they design, for instance, access to new technologies, and have business models which take into account local and global communities. Another thing, of course, is that today cooperation spans across, or should span across, all pillars of the work we do at the UN. We cannot be compartmentalized and do this is humanitarian and that is development, or that is peace and this is humanitarian. We really have to integrate our tools, our way of thinking, if we want to tackle these challenges across the pillars. And third, we have to, of course, and I think the Secretary General is at the forefront of this, be transparent, efficient, agile, and I see your look at... So the Global Coalition for Social Justice provides answers, is an important step. I think it's crucial. Social justice is a crucial tool, and it has to be acknowledged as such in our mix of actions, as you said, much more than it has maybe so far. So we are working at that in the perspective of the Summit of the Future, World Social Summit, and the Social Justice Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy that you saw the transition between the normal look and the look. Thank you so very much for those important issues that you've put on the table. I'm not going to highlight key things because of time constraints, but I'm sure everybody has taken note, and when we're having that conversation, they'll be taken forward on how social justice can be facilitated through the processes that you mentioned. We've ended this first part of the questions. I'll now have the pleasure and privilege of inviting the Honorable Minister for Social Affairs and Health of Finland to deliver her remarks, and just to say thank you, Madam Minister, for co-sponsoring today's event. You have the floor, and it's 3 minutes.
Esteemed Director General, Assistant Secretary General, Directors, Ambassador, distinguished experts, ladies and gentlemen. The ILO initiative on the Global Coalition for Social Justice is very welcome. As Government of Finland, we are supporting the work of the coalition both financially, politically, and through expert inputs. And I'm glad to inform you that Finland has decided to join the coalition. Thank you. The successful preparation of a new UN Social Summit 2025 will be a good opportunity to boost our progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals and social justice. It is high time for us to update the global agenda for the social dimension of sustainable development. The economic, ecological, and social dimensions are interdependent and need to be developed in a balanced manner. Economy of well-being is the top priority that we would like to see also on the UN agenda, including the UN Social Summit next year. The economy of well-being is based on sound economic policy. It highlights that investing in effective and efficient well-being policy measures and structures can support the economy in an important manner. The economy of well-being emphasizes employment, active labor market policies, and occupational safety and health. It stands for equal opportunities, gender equality, adaptation of working environments for persons with people with partial workability, and in more generally, leaving no one behind principle. Well-being policy measures generate greater trust and social cohesion. They contribute to productivity and through preventative measures to fiscal stability. Well-being policies and structures also enhance resilience to adverse shocks. GDP is an important indicator, but we need a broader perspective. We need to pool existing indicators to provide data about the interlinkage of the well-being policies and economy. This is an important tool to bring social dimensions more into high policy agenda, which it, of course, deserves. Thank you. What was the time?
Thank you so much, Madam Minister. I didn't even get to preparing for the look. But thank you so very much for that very important contribution, but also for confirming that Finland is now a member of the Global Coalition. We'll now go to the last segment of this interventions from our panelists. And I plead with our panelists, please keep it to 3 minutes. Okay, so that we'll have the opportunity to have the interaction that we seek. And I see quite a lot of people nodding. So we're thanking you in advance for keeping to the 3 minutes. I will start with the president and CEO of USCIB, represented by Ms. Noreen, who is here with us, with Ms. Noreen Kennedy, who is with us. And the question is, you represent the voice of business. From your perspective, how can we leverage the role of the Global Coalition for Social Justice to strengthen international cooperation and policy coherence, particularly with businesses, so that together there will be an active contribution to effectively addressing social justice worldwide?
Just started my timer. Thank you so much to the ILO, the government of Switzerland, and the permanent mission of Finland to the UN for convening us today and for inviting us to join the panel. Social justice is indeed foundational to the ILO's work and core mandate, and as the U.S. employers representative to the ILO, USCIB welcomes joint work that advances this agenda. We are also proud to join the chorus that we have heard today and announce that we too have joined the Global Coalition for Social Justice. It is exciting to hear that more than 100 partners have come on board across the entire panorama: UN agencies, governments, workers, employers, enterprises, and other international institutions. We have all joined the coalition in collaboration with other partners to advance the path towards social justice in the world of work. We believe that the social dialogue, whether it is bipartite or tripartite, can help us address various emerging labor and social challenges, and is very timely, given also this year's focus on SDG 1, poverty eradication, among others, at the high-level political forum. By supporting livelihoods through employment, promoting equal opportunities, and engaging in open dialogue, we can contribute significantly to a more productive and engaging workplace. In order for these challenges to be leveraged and opportunities to be leveraged, more importantly, we need to promote honest discussion and exchanges on what works and what does not at different levels. The Global Coalition for Social Justice initiative covers the key themes that are relevant to us, the employers, such as social dialogue, enabling environments for sustainable enterprises, skills anticipation, productive employment, and tackling informality. It also positions the ILO well as a leading entity in preparation for the upcoming UN Summit of the Future this year and the anticipated Social Summit. And as I was saying to Ambassador Berset before we started, we certainly took note of the zero draft for the Global Pact and the relative absence of social dimension in that text. So a lot of work still to be done, certainly. We are eager to engage with all of you, governments, societal partners, to share best practices and learn from one another. This sharing and mutual learning can be particularly valuable for developing countries. So to conclude, from the employer's point of view, we see genuine social dialogue among governments and social partners as essential to achieve social justice. This dialogue is crucial for creating a business-friendly environment and fostering sustainable development that will benefit all stakeholders and really put into practice what Ms. Spadalizano talked about before, which is a new model of multilateralism, a practical and inclusive multilateralism. Thank you.
You did that. Great. You kept within 3 minutes, and there's the indicator to show that you did it. Thank you so very much. But you also raised very interesting issues, and I like the connection between the different interventions, building on what was said by Francesca, yes, from Francesca, in terms of a new model of engagement, where the private sector should have a seat, and where we work on what works, but also what doesn't work in a very effective arrangement. Thank you so much for that. So with this, I will now turn to Ms. Kathy Feingold of ITUC. And the question is this: how can inclusive social dialogue be more effectively utilized to support the SDGs and promote social justice at the global level? You have 3 minutes.
Starting. Thanks so much for the invitation today. And the ITUC joins everybody here in being very excited about this initiative. We really think it's going to help accelerate the implementation of the SDGs and the Decent Work Agenda. And more specifically, we think the coalition should be a unique platform, as I just heard from a USCIB colleague, to uphold the role of social dialogue and democracy as key means of implementation of the 2030 agenda. And this can be part of everything we've heard: AI, just transition. Social dialogue is the foundation to build trust in democracy. The power of social dialogue has been demonstrated throughout the pandemic, where it served as a key tool in cushioning the social and economic impacts of the crisis. Through various tripartite and bipartite dialogue mechanisms, social partners came together on measures to protect jobs, extend social protection, and design safety protocols. We have also seen examples of how social dialogue has helped to advance the SDGs. We've seen this through climate action, SDG 13. Unions from Somalia, Colombia, Spain participated in making of new climate legislation to phase out fossil fuels. On gender equality, SDG 5 and 8, trade unions have used social dialogue to advance equal pay in Chile, Iceland, Ireland, Israel, Japan, and many other countries. On migration, the general principles and operational guidelines for fair recruitment adopted at the ILO by representatives of governments, trade unions, and employers in 2016, and many other initiatives are, again, an example of how we are using social dialogue to get to the SDGs. But still, in order for social dialogue to be more effectively utilized to support the SDGs, we need the full recognition of the right of freedom of association, collective bargaining, and the right to strike, in line with SDG number 8. And I just want to emphasize, we often in these fora talk about forced labor and child labor, but you can't get rid of them without freedom of association and collective bargaining. We have seen that time and time again. We need institutional social dialogue structures within countries. My own country, that would be great, in order to effectively steer national development efforts and support the design and implementation of human-centered recovery and resilience policies. The participation of social partners should also be recognized in the new global governance architecture proposed by the UN. A truly inclusive, rights-based multilateral system needs social partners on board. To finish, by promoting these policies, the Global Coalition can play a unique role in demonstrating to governments the power of the broader UN system and the critical need for social partnership and tripartism to actually rescue the SDGs, as well as the need for international labor standards to shape policies in line with the social justice agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And that last sentence, using social dialogue to rescue the SDGs effectively, that resonates with a lot of people, and I could see nods, as you said it. Thank you so much for that intervention. We'll now end the round of the panel interventions with the last question that will go to you, Sarah Hendricks. As a director in the UN agency dedicated to accelerating progress on meeting the needs of women and girls worldwide, the question is, what are the current best practices and innovative approaches for fostering social development and achieving the SDGs through social policy, building on the need to rescue the SDGs through social dialogue? Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator, and indeed, allow me to add my voice to our wonderful hosts today, to the ILO, Finland, Switzerland, and certainly the Global Coalition partners that are around the table. I do want to bring to bear the intersection of the gender dimensions of social justice and speak to your question on best practice. As we think about the polycrises that are facing the world today, whether that's the lingering effects of COVID, or whether that's climate change, the cost of living crisis, or the protracted conflicts we see around the world, we do know that these have a disproportionate impact on the lives of women and girls, and indeed on their experiences of poverty and the efforts for poverty eradication. Just to put a few very clear data points behind this, today 1 in 10 women globally are living in extreme forms of poverty, and more than 1 in 4 are affected by extreme forms of food insecurity. What this means is that to achieve the SDGs on no poverty, no hunger, we actually need to see progress be both 26 and 33 times faster than it actually is today, which is a huge requirement for us to be successful. In terms of policy priorities, we know policy priorities to make a change depend on country-specific conditions, and they do depend also on globally coordinated efforts to really maximize the scale of impact effectively. And I think that's why the Global Coalition on Social Justice is particularly important. And I would like to commend the ILO's leadership in bringing this to bear. UN Women was also very pleased, so we'll add our voice to the chorus, to respond positively to join the Global Coalition for Social Justice. This reflects additional partnerships, Director General, that we have together with you, whether that's our joint programs on the care economy, our shared leadership on the Equal Pay International Coalition, or our efforts in partnership with your leadership on the Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection. To get to a fine point on the question that was asked of me, I'd like to simply point to 3 ideas for inspiration for the discussion. In terms of 3 policy priorities, number 1 would be on care. We see that investments in the care economy are a particularly impactful lever in accelerating progress for women and girls, in accelerating social justice from a gender equality lens. The second is on jobs and social protection. The coalition recognizes the centrality of job creation, the access to social protection as part and parcel of the achievement of social justice. This really represents a great opportunity to leverage partnerships, to create synergies, and to do so with a gender lens at the heart. And the third policy lever is, of course, financing. UN Women really would argue that international debt and financial architecture reform must be at the center of enabling the policy coherence that is needed to promote social development, to enable women's access to basic services, and to realize the ambitions of the Coalition for Social Justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And those 3 key points in terms of where we can focus our policy interventions, and also building on the very good collaboration that you highlighted between UN Women and the ILO. And again, another new member of the Global Coalition. So really great. We've heard from the distinguished panelists. Now we'd want to hear from you so that we have this great conversation. We're going to use the next 15 minutes. So please, I think what we'll do is we'll use the show of hands or yeah, maybe we'll use, okay, I can see the hands coming up. All right, he's looking, okay. So I've seen 2 hands, but I'm wearing glasses, so maybe I'm not seeing too good. I've seen a third one. 1, 2, 3. Great. And the first one was from there. Yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
Very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sofia Garcia. I am from SOS Children's Villages here in New York. Thank you for the very interesting presentations. The initiative is very relevant. My point is from the perspective of one of the most important stakeholders in social protection, which is children. We work with children that have been separated from their families, due precisely in most cases because of failure in proper social protection coverage, which leads to, unfortunately, child-family separation. So I would love to hear from the panelists, and I know UNICEF and some child-focused organizations are part already of the coalition. What would be those key policies that we have talked about in general from the perspective of children, and to the point just made about the care economy, paid or unpaid care work, how can we combine in a way that benefits everybody, gender issues, economic issues, the child perspective, etc. There is the resolution on care and support that is being negotiated, if not just adopted, in the Commission on Social Development. So how can we maximize that resolution and other work around the topic of care, including all perspectives? Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping it short and sweet, but you packed a lot into that. So we'll go to, yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Lynn Healy from the International Association of Schools of Social Work. And social justice is at the very core of what we're all about. It's part of the global definition of social work. So my question is if you could comment more on the role of civil society in the coalition or in the work of the coalition. I'd be very interested to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The role of civil society in the coalition. The third, yes, and the third, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Ladd. I'm the head of the United Nations Research Institute for Social Development, a member of the Global Coalition. And in our role, our primary function within the UN is to connect to think tank and academic communities around the world, particularly in the global south, and make sure that their perspectives and research and policy thoughts make it into the UN. But I think we also recognize as an autonomous research institute that we can play a role in helping communities change hearts as well as minds. You know, policy and research is based on minds, but to actually get to change, you need to connect with people. So the sorts of events that we are planning over the next year as a contribution to the coalition are art competitions, and we're holding a concert to celebrate the International Day of Social Justice next Thursday evening in Geneva with 700 people in the Human Rights Council of the UN dancing to music from all around the world. And I suppose my question is, when member states join the coalition, what are their plans for invigorating and energizing their own communities, their own young people, the people that actually believe in social justice? How can you build momentum for a coalition that will take us to the World Social Summit?
Thank you very much for that. The mind and the heart to really make the change. But you asked the question to the member states, that what are they going to do? I think it can be expanded to actually all the panelists to indicate what they're going to do beyond the member states. So thank you very much. And again, welcome to the coalition. Yes, I think there was a hand here. Are there other hands? Others who would want to take the floor? Oh, All right, I've seen 2 hands on this side. So you have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much, and Madam Moderator and the distinguished delegates. My name is Musa Omar, and I'm the president of Somali Help Age Association. I'm from Mogadishu, and I appreciate that this kind of opportunity to come together for the global coalition, it is happening, and I do appreciate for that effort to come together as a coalition for the to address social justice. My question is that, what is the policy towards for the older persons in the global coalition of social justice, whereby we believe that the Somalia in particular has been left behind for so many years of the starvation and recurrent and drought and the flooding, and we don't see anything about the addressing those kind of challenges that they have been facing by the older person in Somalia, whereby the 2 million people, particularly in Mogadishu, has been displaced and they are in the camps. So, and we have not seen any UN or international NGOs that focusing for the needs of the older person in Somalia, only for the gender issues, the youth and the children. So the youth of today will be the older of tomorrow. So where is that gap, and what is the position for the global coalition regarding for that particular issues? And apart from that, and on ILO, we do see that even the employment and workplace harassment and the discrimination faced by the older persons in Somalia, it is quite large. And as the constitution and the review process is started, and the parliament has approved it to amend it, we are working on to develop policy to include for the older persons in Somalia, so that the older persons they can access for the labor opportunities in Somalia. So this is the kind of things we would like to share with the distinguished delegates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy you got the message, because we're also going to use the microphone as part of it so that we can get as many as possible to intervene, but very important issue that you have raised. Thanks. I see the hands are coming up. So the gentleman next to you and then the lady, but we'll start with the gentleman.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is William Smith. I'm the main representative to the UN for the Global Aging Network, and I also chair the NGO Committee on Aging Executive Committee. And I work closely with DESA, and they've been great to work with. My question really is a follow-up on the care economy, because we know that many women have been, through the pandemic, have been outsourced or eliminated from their jobs because there was nobody to take care of their families, either children or older persons that they were caregiving for during the pandemic. And they're trying to reintroduce themselves to the work environment, but it's sometimes necessary, I think, to consider a hybrid type of return to work rather than full-time employment, because we still don't have the support for children and older persons. We know that the majority of long-term care that's provided in the United States is provided through the informal care network, and that's a very critical piece to keeping people and society moving. So my question is, can you tell us more about the care economy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Issues around aging, issues around the care economy being brought to the fore in terms of the engagement of the coalition. Yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
Hi, greeting everyone, Madam Moderator and members of panelists. My name is Anjali Tripathi. I am Secretary General of International Federation on Aging, and my question is related to aging population, how Global Coalition of Social Justice is supporting older person, because they face injustice, ageism, they face unemployment, financial insecurities, and also they need care. So what program we have to support them?
Thank you very much for that intervention around aging. I really would want us to hear from everyone who would want to take the floor. So Still, anyone who would like to take the floor? You're sure? Okay, it's closed. Now we'll go to the panelists and to all the speakers, actually, because there's some of those questions that were asked that apply to all the speakers. And I will start with Ambassador Berset. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your questions and active participation. I'll try to answer some of the questions, and others, of course, I guess, will be answered by the DG of the ILO. In terms of priorities and in terms of some focus on key people. What about children and care? And that will be explained later on, I'm sure, by the DG of the ILO. As it was said, we have now, during this CSocD, a resolution on care. We hope it will be finalized soon. But from the side of Switzerland, for example, we insisted on references to the ILO because the International Labour Organization has published different reports on care, decent work, care work, and we will have a general discussion coming in the next conference in June. And I think it's really relevant and important to focus on that purpose. Just as an example, in Switzerland, after the COVID-19 pandemic, we had what we call popular initiative, so, within our direct democracy. So people voted in favor of improving the care sector in Switzerland, meaning that now we are putting in place a big training program to favor more care work people, but also a lot of discussion between social partners to improve the labor conditions within the sector. And so different projects are being now discussed at the Parliament on that. So that's more the aspect of our national policies. The role of the civil society in the coalition, and how do states or member states that are now in the coalition, how are they going to promote the coalition towards youth or the civil society? I think this Commission on Social Development here at the UN is a great opportunity to promote the coalition towards the civil society and towards the youth. For example, we have in our delegation, not all countries have that, but we have a youth delegate. She's here at the table. And it's an opportunity also for her to get to know about the coalition, about all these issues. And of course, in the future, we would be happy to introduce them more in the coalition the best way possible. I think the list of NGO in general is growing, but this is also information that we need to get from the ILO. But for Switzerland, it's very important to have very inclusive coalition, not only with social partners, they are the usual partners of the ILO, but really also to integrate the civil society more and more in the coalition. And of course, the countries and the member states have a role to play. Yeah, that's all what I can say at that stage.
Thank you. We'll go now to UNDESA. Francesca, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. I will make one point on aging and one more general point. As many of you know better than me, DESA has a unit devoted exclusively to analyzing the trends around old age, the condition of aging population, etc. And that is only one little part of the whole system in the UN family, which pays attention indeed to the conditions related to aging population, because there are a number of publications to witness to this analytical body, whether it is from the WHO, whether it is UNDP, whether it is human rights. We all published policy briefs and updates on our knowledge. One figure for all, the number of older people defined as those who are 65 and older, including myself, tripled from around 260 million in 1980 to 761 million in 2021, and the trend is growing. As you know, we also have a demographer, a very good demographic unit, which has produced studies on demographic trends, and clearly the trend towards increasing number of aging population is there, and we have developed this concept. So there is a great attention in the UN. I know that underlining some of your intervention, there is a question about whether we will have a convention or not, but that is something that the member states are always aware of and negotiate, and sometimes it goes faster, sometimes it seems to be stopped, but that is not for me to comment on. So anyway, in the UN system we have paid, and we continue to pay a lot of attention, also because it is indeed linked to our theme, a very disruptive, if you want, trend in terms of the ability of member states, of governments, to take care of their own population. There is a shrinking basis of people who will work and produce, and a larger base number of people who will need care. So we go back to what we discussed, and I don't have to repeat. The broader comment I wanted to make is that we hope, and I think it's a very well, it's going to be met, our hope, there will be a World Social Summit in 2025. And so this time we have, which is not a lot, but is the right time to really bring together our collective thinking and make proposals so that in that forum decisions can be made how to support sectors of the population, including aging population, with the right social policy measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have feedback that we expect from 3 colleagues before the final comments from the DG. We have exactly 16 minutes. So you're going to help me be brutal with the panelists. We're going to do it together, right? So that they answer within a very short period of 1 minute, 30 seconds, right? And so, Ms. Hendricks, your take, 90 seconds.
Sure. Allow me perhaps just to add a little bit more to the very interesting questions and dialogue on care, and really to emphasize that the evidence and lessons from UN Women highlights truly that investments into the care economy is a particularly transformative lever for lifting women and girls out of poverty, for unlocking economic empowerment, and for seeing broader spillover effects that strengthen communities and societies at large. UN Women was so proud and honored to have worked and collaborated with ILO on a joint program called Promoting Decent Employment for Women through Inclusive Growth Policies and Investments in the Care Economy. And what this did is work with governments to deploy 3 policy tools. One was to cost the deficits in the care economy. The second was to predict the actual return on employment, i.e. the employment effects of investing in care. And the third was to predict the GDP gains of investing into care. The deployment of these 3 policy tools with over 25 governments around the world really demonstrated the wins and the gains from a child rights perspective, going back to the first question, but also the spillover effects in terms of the economy, in terms of social cohesion, and in terms especially of women's economic empowerment and overall inclusive economic development. I hope these additional points on care are useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for addressing the care dimension. There's a lot more that I'm sure you would have wanted to say, but this is the beginning of a conversation. And as Francesca said, as we're preparing for or working towards the World Social Summit, we'll be having more of such conversations so that we're able to effectively articulate the issues and move on them. We'll now go to you, Ms. Feingold.
One thing I would do is just package all the comments that people talked about and really say what we need to put in the Social Justice Coalition is our call that we've had for many years, which is a new social contract. I think it really brings in everybody's ideas that we're hearing, creation of decent and climate-friendly jobs with just transition, right for all workers, care, elderly workers, minimum living wages and equal pay, universal social protection, which is the floor, equality and inclusion. And I think one powerful thing this coalition can do is bring together all the processes in the UN, because for many countries, it's really quite chaotic, right? So how do you bring together this lens of social justice, put decent work agenda and social justice at the center of all the key UN processes, Commission on Social Development, high-level political forum, the UN Summit of the Future, and the World Social Summit in particular needs to have decent work and equality at its core to ensure that there's a rights-based universal agenda towards 2030. And I just wanted to echo that we must link all of this and policy work to the financing debates on SDGs. Without that financing, we're not going to be able to move this really important agenda. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Kennedy?
At the same time. Okay, so just two very rapid points. First one, on this interesting tension and potential synergy between what the national governments are going to work on and what civil society should work on. I mean, I think we have a real opportunity in this coalition to model and co-create something that both at the national level, so for the national governments that are participating, they should, if they aren't already, and we've heard some examples of how it is already happening, bring in and consult with the whole panorama of civil society and business, but then also within the coalition itself to bring together these important voices and stakeholders in the discussion. I think it's critical, and certainly DESA has been already blazing this trail in terms of the way in which it does recognize constituencies and engage us through the coordination. It can be very crowded and even confusing, but still so important to do. And then I think the other quick point I'll make is that the International Organization of Employers is a social partner, and that is not only limited to dialogue, but it's also around actually making change and in helping to train and skill and support their national federations and to work with other partners at the local level on the ground. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities there as well that we can take back and consider in terms of our future focus in the Social Justice Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, and thanks for the timing to keep to time. We've tried to answer, the panelists have tried to answer or respond to the issues that have been brought to the table. And there's one, some have answered, but there was a question you asked. What will you do as countries? That question was not necessarily answered. I think it was because of the pressure of time. Sorry? My boss has said he will integrate that into his response. It was really before I hand over to my boss to say thanks to all the questions that we've received and the contributions that have been made. That has been very useful. So with this, I'll hand over to the DG for his closing remarks. DG, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and thank you all for this very rich exchanges and ideas that you are putting on the table. In maybe wrapping up or closing and thanking you, let me touch on maybe a few of the points and hoping that it will also provide direct or indirect answer to maybe to the point made that you made, as well as I believe from Somalia as well. I think it's important for me to tell you what do we see as the next steps in this on that. As we're saying, the numbers are growing. Actually, before coming here, we were like 127. The accumulation of member state NGOs our social partners from the workers and employers organization, as well as the academia. And so now I have to, we adding Finland. So you can see that the numbers are quite growing. Switzerland and colleague from DESA or UN Women were already there on that. So we, of course, the list will be continuing growing. And we have our own board meeting, which we call our governing body meeting early March. We're going to report back also to our GB. Somewhere between now and maybe after the GB, we're going to have the first kind of global meeting for all the coalition members, very likely online, to save the cost. So not only to report back to all of you that are members, then the next step will be what? Is to agree on to finalize the key thematics where we want to put the focus on. Our governing body in approving, in deciding on this coalition has given us some guiding principle, which we have kind of 5 or 6 major domains. And when I'm listening around the table, I'm very confident that they are already within those domains. So we want to make sure that finalizing that is not just ILO, it's all of us in the coalition that will finalizing it. So I will not be surprised, and that's where you also have to be active. All of you that, like us, like DESA, like UN Women and others, UNICEF, are fighting, pushing for the not only the care economy and the aging challenge we're having, and from ILO perspective, and also maybe I'm speaking also on behalf of IOM, migration, you have to add back also the labor migration, which could also be a solution to the challenge we're having in the skill shortage and the aging population on that. So once we finalize the thematics, and then we will, for each thematic, we need to have a work plan, an action plan, because at the end of the day, we want this is the difference we're making on the ground. That counts. Is an action plan that we will have. And in doing that action plan, that's where the answer to your question will come. That's where also member states, NGOs, international organizations can also decide how do I want to contribute, not just to advocate, but how do I want to contribute? And that will define the action plan by thematics, and we will be reporting back on that action plan on annual basis. We have a coordination mechanism, of course, and et cetera. I don't want to be too technical on that. My very point is that we have to keep in mind that we are within Agenda 2030, and we want to use this platform to step up all the challenge we're talking in terms of on the social development side, within the Agenda 2030, and which will include also how, therefore, that could help us create or start creating a momentum leading toward, Francesca said, on leading to 2025 with the summit on the WSSD, I think, and the World Summit on Social Development on that. So I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you, those of you that are not yet a member, or other members of your NGOs, colleagues, or member state, or our social partners, to really be a member, so we can together, by listening to you, I find it fascinating. I don't know if it was very well orchestrated, but the point was very clear, and I'm so glad that it will be a missed opportunity if we don't have those points made at the time we are finalizing and which I want also come back quickly to the specific point raised by Madame Kennedy and Madame Feingold on some of the thematics that are so important, because we also talk about informality. We're talking about how in this context of AI, skills and productivity becomes quite a key issue. And I couldn't help it by saying, and I hope the minister will allow me, and the insistence that I got from the minister of Finland this morning on the equation linking the economy with the well-being of society is quite crucial. At the end of the day, you know what if we are not able to improve the well-being of our population, I mean, we are pointless in terms of what we're doing. And also thanks to Switzerland, and I said it in the session this morning, they have really be really very pushing the coalition to say that, okay, the UN agencies is important, is crucial, but you also have to bring in the financial institutions. You also have to bring in the Washington and the Regional Development Bank to make that even much more forceful if we want to have. So I know Cynthia start having her look. So let me say a big thank you to you all, and we'll certainly follow up with each of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DJ. Thank you very much, Ambassador Berset. Actually, she deserves a very special applause because this is the brainchild of the Swiss government in having this conversation. So I think you deserve a special applause. Do you agree with me that we've had a great panel? A really great panel. You're already doing what I was going to ask you to do. So thank you so very much. Thanks a million. And thanks to you for being such an active group. We really appreciate it. We'll continue the conversation. And thanks a million. Bye.
Thank you.